So my steering wheel turned off yesterday.
Your video game steering wheel, right?
No, not as much.
You're not a racing wheel guy anyway, right?
I have one sitting over here just in case. The last time I dusted it off was when probably I don't know. I subscribed to iRacing for like 2 years and played with some friends every night during the pandemic. Things were weird.
I was once told one should not buy a racing wheel, but
it has a lot of buttons. It's really cool.
Be that as it may.
It's like it's got 2 grips and it's like an F1 kind of dealy, and it has knobs and dials and screens, and it's a fancy boy. But no, I'm not talking about that wheel. That wheel's, as far as I know, just fine. Maybe slightly dust covered.
Unlike some real cars I could mention, I assume that one doesn't just randomly disable itself.
So I took my daughter up to class yesterday afternoon, and then I came back to the house, and when I went back to pick her up after class, because it was 100 degrees or something insanely hot down here, the steering wheel, I got a, hey man, check your lane assist function warning from the car, which is like the thing that keeps you from smashing into other cars when you're changing lanes. It beeps at you. And then I looked down and I realized that none of the lights on the steering wheel were on. I was like, oh, my steering wheel has crashed. And I couldn't get it turned back on. So I reset the entertainment system. I think I have to pull it. So I did some research, did some reading. Yes. You're shaking your head.
I'm just a little. Yeah. This is a lot to absorb.
Yeah. Like,
or there's a lot of questions that spawn from this. Like, is the steering wheel part of the entertainment center software package? Does it have its own governance? One would hope.
So it connects to the steering wheel parts. It's the steering wheel part that turns the car is a mechanical linkage to the wheels, just like in most other cars these days.
Good. Check.
So that part still worked. The horn, simple circuit, so that it'll work no matter what, still worked. The turn signals, the shifter, the windshield wipers, all of that stuff, no problem. The buttons on the steering wheel that control cruise control and like lane keeping and let you change the HUD on the little screen in front of you and change the volume and mute on your entertainment stuff. None of those are working.
Okay, so you're not like dead in the water as far as just controlling the vehicle then.
Well, but also the paddle shifters don't work, which is kind of important because it determines what kind of driving mode the car is in, whether it's in like the one pedal mode or whether it's in the automatic recovery mode or whether it's in one of the more aggressive or less aggressive recharging modes. So I can't change that, which is kind of annoying because I do change that fairly regularly. But yeah, no, the car still works. Looking into it, depending on which model car it is, it seems like there's this bus that all of the electronics in the car talk across, and that could have conked out, or it could just be a mechanical failure in the kind of like, you know, to have wires go into something that turns 360 degrees. There's a special kind of joint, a spring clamp, I think it's called, that may have also failed. So I got to take it to the dealer. That's the TLDR.
Okay. I was going to say, to cut to the chase, did it ever come back? It sounds like no.
I tried it again last night at like midnight. I haven't tried it yet today. It was insanely hot down here yesterday. So when I got in the car to pick her up, it was like probably 120 inside the car, which is hotter than we usually see here, but not like outside the pale for most of North America in the summertime.
Have you ever seen any squirrels fleeing your vehicle?
No, that was the first thing I was afraid of. I opened it up to make sure that we hadn't had rats eating the wires and shortening stuff out.
Were you one of the, I feel like several people that has told me in the last few years that rodents of some kind had gnawed wires in their car?
Not my car, but one of my daughter's friend's parents' car had an Audi with the bioplastic wire sheathing.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay,
it's made out of corn.
Oh, well, that explains everything then.
Yeah,
I feel like I've heard from at least one, if not two people, that their mechanic or whoever they had fix the car told them like, yeah, the wires are now made out of some material that rodents really like to eat, and that kind of explains everything.
Yep, they totaled her Audi.
Wow.
Yeah, because they ate enough of the wiring harness that it was cheaper to just total the car than it was to dismantle it fully and replace the wiring harness.
That's okay.
So anyway, my takeaway on this is maybe if there's some sort of network bus that can crash at such a high level that makes the steering wheel buttons stop working, maybe we've gone too far with the cars.
Decomputerized cars? No, maybe not yet.
I don't know. There's that slate. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
Brad, it's the happiest day of the week for Apple and iOS fans.
Is
and
it?
It's the episode that the Android people skip and complain about every year.
You know, I don't remember a lot of complaints for the last couple of years, so either they are okay with it or we have just shed all the Android users. That can't be true.
We have a lot of Android
That can't
users
be true.
still.
Yeah, there's plenty of Android users on the Discord, as far as I can tell.
Look,
Apple is an interesting company, and I think it is. I've said this elsewhere. I think they are an amazing technology company, and I think it is worth keeping up with what they're doing, even if you don't necessarily care for their products.
I would tend to agree with that. And the other interesting thing is it gives the Android people something fun to say, hey, we had that 10 years ago on our Pixel phones.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that this go around. But yeah, it's WWDC week. That is hard to say. WWDC.
Do they need? I have thought for years whether they need a new name for this thing.
Do you know, like they're hosted in
WWDC?
So they're hosted like, hey, what's going on at the developer conference daily show is called the Dub,
Oh,
which is good.
Okay,
That would have been cool like 8 years ago, probably.
Like, sure.
So that's pretty good for Apple.
I mean, at least they're kind of leaning into it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Worldwide Developers Conference is what we're talking about here, right? But
yeah,
does not quite roll off the tongue like some conference names could.
No, it used to be an in-person thing. I think they still invite some people to come in person, but for the most part, it's virtual.
Oh, this is not an in-person show floor thing anymore? Oh.
No, it all happens at the circle.
Oh, they just have people in for a keynote and then that's it?
It's unclear to me how you get to go to the circle, but
Interesting.
Yeah. Like, I think they had press there. Like, maybe they just had employees sitting in the audience. It seems like it's almost all pre-recorded at this point.
What I mean, though, is like developers are not gathering for talks or anything. Like, I thought this was just kind of Apple's in-house GDC type equivalent where people were like having full-on seminars and presentations on stuff, but I guess not.
So that's what used to happen. It used to happen at Moscone, or I think occasionally down south in San Jose, but mostly at Moscone in San Francisco.
Okay.
And a bazillion people would come in, but it was super inaccessible because coming to San Francisco for a conference is hella expensive. The tickets for that were really expensive. I think they realized it didn't scale, and this is the solution for that. So it's been like that for a few years.
One might argue that developing for Apple is in itself a bit inaccessible.
I mean, look.
Well, I mean, I guess I mean in terms of like cost of hardware and stuff like that. And it's not like they are not doing plenty of work to make development tools more accessible for developers.
Look, they give you a 5% discount if you're a business customer. That's it keeps it nice and easy. So when you're buying your $8,000 of Apple hardware to develop on, you get 5% of that back.
I've often wondered specifically what it's like developing an iOS app and testing across every possible iOS device that you might ship on or support. Like, is that all automated or built into their development platform at this point? Like,
I've never built a shipping iOS app before. I built some like private stuff for Foo, but we never, like, it didn't go through cert or anything like that.
Like, I wonder if they virtualize some of that stuff. Like, I mean, like, you're going to have differences just on dimensions of screen and UI layout and stuff like that, let alone like what the hardware can support. Like, surely small time boutique iOS developers are not having to buy like one of every phone on the market or something, right?
No, I think if you use their code environment thing, is it Xcode still? I don't remember.
They definitely still make that. I don't know if that's the thing here, but yeah.
Yeah, well, they used to provide there was a virtual iPhone you could run inside the environment.
That's what I figured.
But B, the UI stuff was fairly abstracted, so you didn't have to do too much. Like, that was one of the big advantages of iOS early on over Android in terms of developing apps, was that for a long time they only had one dimension screen, right? So it was like iPhone 3G size or 2x pixels iPhone 3G size. And then they started making different shape screens, and that changed everything. But I feel like that stuff was fairly abstracted, so you didn't have to worry about it too much. I don't know for sure. But yeah, so the kind of underpinning of this is that everybody hated last year's iOS and Mac releases because it had the frosted glass stuff.
I get social media algorithms are a thing. some of this being funneled to me because it's what I was looking at, and so I got more of it. I know better than to think that, a curated For You page is indicative of like broad consensus, but boy, did I see a lot of hate for liquid glass. Nonstop since last year. Like, it still has yet to abate.
It got hate during the beta period, and they made an adjustment during the beta period last year, which is unusual because usually by the time you see UI stuff in beta periods from them, it's done. Like, there's no changing it, but they made it more legible. This year as a whole seems like hey, we want to fix. Like, it's like, hey, let's do some refinements and fixes.
Like, it's basically what they led with, right? Like, I think the first real segment of any import in the keynote video is the liquid glass changes, right? Like, they seem pretty sensitive to it.
Craig Federighi made his weed joke as he does every year. The name of the next Mac OS is Golden Gate. That was the very first thing they led with, which is like, they think that joke is so good.
It doesn't really matter, but I think maybe they could use a bit of a makeover on these videos they post. Like, there is just a kind of stiffness to all the presentation that I don't know.
The guys are getting older.
Well, there's that. I'm talking about more literally just the production format, though, like the kind of have person walk out full frame, like very, very manicured, rehearsed teleprompter reading kind of thing. Like, it's just a little stiff.
I don't know. I don't hate that. I don't hate the format. I'd much rather have that than an awkward executive on the stage.
I guess so.
Having watched a lot of those keynotes at Computex and CES and stuff lately, let them do this where they're the most comfortable and the most human. And if this is as human as they get, that's great.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I try to be conscious of not engaging in Steve Jobs idolatry too much. Like, the guy, there were plenty of shitty things about Steve Jobs, but he was an unbelievable showman, like,
can I
casts a long shadow, and they are not doing a great job of keeping that alive. I don't know.
Well, I mean, with Tim retiring, we'll see what what comes next, because that's the transition point, probably.
That is like, I guess there's not much to say about that here, because John Turnus is the new guy, right? Like, he was not really front and center that I saw anywhere here, so there's not much to think about there yet, but I think he's taking over in September?
Yeah, September. So presumably the next phones will be him, or maybe it'll be after the next phones. I don't know.
So this is Tim Cook's last one of these. Yeah, we'll see what changes. Anyway,
can I sidebar real quick, because my daughter's been playing Tamagotchi Life, and I was like, hey, show me who you have on your island. She showed me, and she made a Steve Jobs, Brad.
Huh.
I was like, how do you even, like, what is your connection with Steve Jobs? Can we talk about this? And she's like,
did she overlap with him at all, or was she born after he
died in 2012, right?
2011, I want to say.
Yeah. So no, she was born in 2013.
Interesting.
Yeah. So her connection is through object shows, which reference Steve Jobs as a villain who makes a phone that brainwashes all the characters in her shows, called Steve Cobbs, who's actually just a big giant piece of corn. He kind of looks like the Fortnite corn guy.
I don't have a clue what an object show is. I hate to say.
It's experimental animation. Remember the animation festivals that used to tour in the 90s when you were in college, and you'd go to like the school theater and you'd see some weird animation from Spike and Mike or Spike and Ike or Spike and it's like that, but made by 12-year-olds in 2010.
It's just kind of like Next Generation Gary's Mod or something. Just take some assets and slap them together to make them do things.
I think it's probably closer to like Flash animation, like early 2000s Flash animation.
Okay. All right, sure.
But yeah, it's so anyway, she made Steve Jobs in Tamagotchi Life, and I had to like, I was like, what does Steve Jobs say? And I can't remember his catchphrase, but it was pretty funny. So
anyway. I don't know. Like, maybe he is a villain, all things considered, these days. Like, setting aside his personal assholishness, which was profound. I don't think he did not have bad intentions for what he unleashed on the world, but
the intentions don't matter, Brad.
The downstream effects of the supercomputer in everybody's pocket are maybe dire at this point. I don't know.
It's three things in one. Yeah. It's a web browser, a music player. Nobody uses it for that anymore, though.
Yeah.
And also, you can yell at people across the internet from anywhere you are. It's great. It's what humans crave.
Yeah.
Anyway.
In his defense, I randomly saw a clip of him at some point in the last couple of years talking about how much he valued independent journalism and how important that was to a functioning democracy and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't think he would have been thrilled with the way things are going.
I mean,
and the way his company's devices have abetted those trends, but whatever.
It's funny because in the tech space, they never, like, they had a list of people that they invited to things, and they gave access to, and that was it. If you were outside of that loop, then you were cut off forever. So anyway, all right, enough inside baseball nonsense.
Yeah.
So yeah, you wrote in here that this feels like a Snow Leopard style refinement release.
Golden Gate does, yeah.
Yeah, which I think that applies across the entire line. All of this feels like there wasn't a ton of new stuff. Like they're taking a third stab, I think, at adding AI stuff in a way that's different than what everybody else is doing and maybe actually useful. I don't know.
It's basically liquid glass tweaks, new AI, like finally making good on the AI stuff they're super late on that they promised, and like some child safety stuff. And other than that, it's just, hey, we're making the stuff better, which, like, frankly, when did Snow Leopard come out? 2009?
2 or 3.
Wait, year?
It was early.
No. It was definitely...
Really?
Yeah, it was when it was after I started at Whiskey. I think Snow Leopard was the first boxed Mac OS that I bought.
Yeah, sorry, it was while I was still at Maximum PC is what I was thinking. So yeah, it would have been like late 2000s.
2009? Let me see.
I think it was while I was using a Mac already.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah.
But it's been since then, right? Or this is the first one since then that feels like it's... Maybe I haven't kept up with...
They did some iOS releases that they were like, hey, this is a fix. This is a, like, we realized we had some performance regressions or whatever, and we're making it good. But yeah, it's unusual for them to come out and say, hey, everybody hated the last one, so we're going to make this one good.
Sure. But I like just generally looking at every year, new Mac OS and Windows ships its second half update that also adds a bunch of stuff. Like in both cases, I always look at the feature list and I'm like, 90% of the stuff I do not care about. Like, I don't need, like, I kind of wish it was a little bit less. I wish the pendulum would swing a little bit away from, we need like 6 big new features in the OS every year, and more toward, hey, we're just maintaining this thing and making it work well.
So one of the things I always look at to see if I missed anything important when I watch the keynote and take notes, and then go through the, scour through their docs on the developer page to see if there's anything else of interest that we've not talked about for the list. I go to like The Verge and Gizmodo and like the tech blogs, and I hit there, what were the 5 most important announcements or 7. So The Verge did their 7 most important announcements at WWDC, which now I can't read without a Verge subscription. But it was the AI revamp. It was, hey, you can point your cameras at your camera at things and it'll describe what's on the screen. It was child safety stuff. And then it was like 4 things that I would not have put on. Like, I would have made this a 3 best things that Apple announced at WWDC list, because it seemed pretty thin. Yeah,
I'm looking at it now. They split multiple AI features across their 7.
Yeah,
which really, yes, those all could have been in one bucket.
Yeah, it was a weird choice.
Yeah, but like, frankly, I'm kind of more excited about what they announced here than I would be if it had been like 8 additional macOS features that I'm never going to use, or iOS or whatever. Like,
well, I mean, it's funny because I was going down this list, making the list the other day, and I was like, this kind of sucks. And then you wrote, yeah, this seems like more like Snow Leopard. I was like, oh, right, they're going to make something that I'm actually excited about using. This is good.
Like, there's some Snow Leopard nostalgia out there, because you remember when that came out and they explicitly said, hey, next year we're not going to add and that was pretty early still in OS 10. I mean, not that early. It was like OS 10. It was
like 8 years in at that point.
Yeah. Or 10.6. But still, it was early enough that they were, because, OS 10 was kind of a rickety mess when it came out, right?
Yeah, it was Panther that was the first one that people were like, oh, you could actually use this.
And then Leopard was well liked, but still, like, there was room for them to just say, we're going to like take a pause on new features and just make this thing work better. And that's kind of a lot of what's in here, which is exciting. But anyway, they sure did lead with, hey, we're fixing liquid glass.
Yeah.
Which is maybe not surprising. I do not remember the amount of hate for flat design when that came in.
Yeah, but it was they were late on that because Google had done that earlier. So it was like, that was a more developed design language at that point,
sure.
I think.
Yeah, but also the Apple audience is just way more sensitive to aesthetics and.
Yeah. Well, the transparency stuff didn't land super well for Vista either when Microsoft rolled that out. But that was, I think, mainly due to the fact that Vista's performance was bad on like 90% of the available hardware when it launched.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big things are that they're doing more depth and separation on those layers of the icons. And they're letting you adjust the opacity of the backgrounds.
That's the big one. Well, there are a couple of big ones here, but it's the slider. It is the, hey, you can make things more or less transparent now with the slider, and full opacity, according to their slider, is still like a very frosted glass. You're still going to see colors bleeding through kind of thing.
I don't find that offensive.
I don't mind it.
Probably do.
I don't mind it. I don't get much out of it. I still think it's maybe a little more distracting than I care for. Like it just doesn't add anything to me when you've got text in a top bar and all of a sudden there's like red and green glowing bits as you scroll around. Like it does not help legibility. I'm not going to say it hurts it dramatically, but
it's funny because the thing I use it for more than any place else is when I have the driving, like I have a driving mode that when the phone's plugged into the car, it's like, oh, hey, you're in the car. I'm going to switch to driving mode. And it sends, hey, I'm not here right now, blah, blah, blah. But the big thing is I make those icons as hard to read as possible so that I have no temptation to pick up the phone and try to futz with it while I'm driving.
Sure, that's smart.
But yeah, it's weird. The whole thing was weird. It felt a little bit like an unforced error. It felt like the kind of thing that they were really stoked about inside because it is pretty, but it did definitely impact usability on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I do wonder on the slider, if you set the slider to full opacity and also maybe get into accessibility options where there are things like reduced transparency and reduced motion, I wonder if it's possible to get pretty close to the pre-liquid glass look with kind of zero transparency. I mean, sometimes that has undesirable side effects though, because those toggles in accessibility are very broad and occasionally you'll like you can mess up something that is going to impact you downstream in a way that'll be unpredictable. Like in pursuit of getting rid of things you don't want, you often get rid of things you do want as well. So that may not be great, but still like the changes here, I think are like, I think they are leaving liquid glass in a place I can live with because I'm going to put that slider to minimum transparency and never touch it again. Yeah. The other stuff that they did was they made it more consistent. There was a John Gruber post on Daring Fireball right after the liquid glass stuff shipped in beta last year, where he broke down all the stuff that was like busted and broke the classic Apple design guidelines. And it's stuff like the sidebar is not expanding. The transparent sidebar is not going to the edge of the windows. The toolbar and sidebar stuff in particular in that video, I like kind of pumped my fist when I saw that stuff because like the toolbars were not bars. Yeah. Last year, they were just a bunch of floating bubble buttons with no bar behind it. Like the floating transparent buttons over top of your content just looks terrible. Yeah. So they're literally just adding a bar background to the button area again, which is like, feels like a no-brainer. And the sidebar thing as well, like sidebars floated in the window and just took up extra space they didn't need to, and they have just attached those to the window again in the way they used to. Like it just looks more like old Mac, and I'm mostly using Mac OS as the touchstone here, not iOS. Yeah, because I think this matters more on an actual computer than on a phone because there's more room for this stuff. But yeah, like the basic like window element changes they're making are all very good here. So yeah, they showed the Mac OS stuff a lot. They didn't. The other thing we should talk about is that typically the way this keynote was set up was they would talk about one OS first, and then they'd talk about another OS, and then they'd talk about the third OS. And there might be some bits where there was commonalities in between, but it would usually be introduced as part of either iOS or Mac OS or iPad OS or whatever. They didn't do that this time. This time they just got straight into features, and where they apply across, they highlighted it. But like they didn't talk about the TV OS at all, which isn't super surprising because it's kind of moribund. But like, it's in weird stasis right now. Like I mean, I swear it's been at least 6 months. Well, it's died down now, but for at least most of the last 6 months, the kind of Apple rumor mongers have been saying like new Apple TV any day now. Like, yeah, like the supply chain is showing and they're overdue, and like we've got knowledge of a new model and blah blah blah. And it keeps not coming prices out. Yeah, that might be part of it. The common wisdom is that they are going to be putting more AI stuff in the next Apple TV, and they're trying to get all that stuff right before they ship it. So. That would make sense. Anyway, that would make sense to hold it then. Not much else to talk about there. Real fast, one other UI thing before we get into the other categories here. The corners. Yeah. I had to laugh at how much time they devoted to showing off how they have finally unified the corners. Oh, yeah. Because I don't know if you have seen that has been a particular, I don't know what you want to call it, point of contention on social media
is what I would call that
sure.
one.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know how many times I've seen people post like snarky comparisons of like 5 different window corners in current macOS on social media and just be like, what are we doing here? Because like they're all different. They all round at different angles.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. It is possible to have like 3 or 4 different corner geometries on top of each other right now in current macOS, and like that's been a point and laugh kind of thing since last year. Basically, people going like, "What? This is Apple we're talking about. Like, how did they ship this?"
Do they have multiple like frameworks for drawing windows or something now?
I guess that's what it is. I mean, some of it might be like Electron. Like stuff like Discord on macOS is still Electron, and that might have different corner rounding logic or whatever. But so
that's wild.
They basically like kind of forced that to be unified. But I mostly laughed at it because it really just feels like yet another example of leadership in some like large institution taking cues from social media.
Well,
because like everything from like Xbox leadership to the federal government feels like it is all downstream of what people are complaining about on social media these days.
It's funny because, well, okay, there's 2 ways we could go with this, but it's funny because I expect stuff like the Windows not displaying the same way to like, that's just a cost of doing business on Linux.
Sure.
I'm shocked that I haven't used Mac OS in a long time, so I'm shocked that happens on Mac OS. That's wild.
Even Windows where there's still 25 plus years of legacy software support. Like you just kind of expect that, but
yeah, no thanks.
Like Apple is the company that cares about aesthetics above all else, right?
Yeah. So they talked about perf. I mean, theoretically, it seems like they care about perf this year too.
Yeah. It was. I don't know if they put out a full list somewhere. Like it was presented in the video as kind of a carousel, so it was kind of hard to take in all the improvements at once. But it seemed like there were like dozens of "we've made this faster."
I mean, they always in these keynotes do those big grids of icons and text, like arranged artfully to make it look like there's a whole bunch more stuff in there than there probably is. But also the challenge with writing, like, because one of the ways to look at these WWDC keynotes is that they're patch notes for the entire Apple software stack.
Right.
And they do highlight stuff, like they do go through and it seems like somebody's going through and flagging changes that people submit to be like, hey, we should talk about this in the keynote. This is a good thing, right? I thought like they talked about CPU scheduler, which is a universal problem across all architectures and OSs now, it seems like. I
mean, granted, this is the developers conference. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised, but still hearing somebody from Apple say CPU scheduler in this presentation was kind of amusing.
Well, one of the interesting things that I've noticed since the last version of iOS came out is I now get the, hey, you're using more battery than you usually use by this time of day, so we're going to clock stuff down a little bit so that we're sure your battery lasts all day. Notification, and that is it's actually kind of exactly what I want from a phone, right? Like the goal is the phone should last all day and me not have to think about it, and it seems like they're moving in that direction.
Yeah, I finally scrubbed through this video and just found their giant list that they scroll by very quickly, like faster lock screen switching, faster app launches, faster window switching in iPadOS, faster media playback in watchOS, faster and more reliable NFC reading. Faster airdrop recipient discovery, like it's just on and on.
The faster airdrop discovery, that's awesome because that takes a while sometimes. They talked about preloading the apps that you use at the certain times of day, stuff like that, which they've known what apps you use at different times of day for the recommendation engine for a long time, so it makes sense that they would like cache up whatever it takes to load those apps quickly because people, it turns out, are pretty predictable.
Yeah.
This stuff is coming back all the way to iPhone 11 in some cases.
Yeah, I was going to say, like they managed to bring all the scheduler improvements all the way back, which is, what is that, a 7-year-old phone at this point?
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while. It's supported on like basically they're looking at performance, and they didn't talk about RAM usage, but it seems like RAM usage is part of this as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is another area where I'm sure this is kind of 50-50 driven by both the supply crisis in computing hardware and also, again, social media grumbling, because there sure is a lot of social media grumbling about performance these days.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because Apple and Microsoft are both tackling this at the same time, because the the Windows 11 low latency profile shipped this week. I don't know how much you're probably
really?
I don't know if you're spending much time in Windows these days. Probably not.
I pay attention though.
It's their monthly update. You know, they do the kind of cumulative update is what they call it in Windows Update. The May cumulative update for Windows 11 has got that low latency profile in it, which is just, for now, it's just the thing that kind of like gooses your CPU usage a little bit when you launch apps to make things more responsive. But like I can tell a difference. Like File Explorer is the one I've noticed, and granted, it's also one of the ones they have promoted the most. But like File Explorer definitely launches much faster after this update. Like it's nice to see both companies like kind of taking the performance of like, I don't know if I fully subscribe to this idea that everybody got lazy. I mean, I would never use the word lazy, but like there's this prevailing idea out there that computers got so fast that developers just started getting sloppy with worrying about maximizing performance, which I don't fully subscribe to, but it's still nice to see both companies taking responsiveness and just basic operation more seriously.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know how, like, for whatever reason, Microsoft juicing it's funny, the way you describe that feels bad to me. Microsoft juicing the CPU clock to make the apps that they made slow launch faster.
So, I mean, that has been the response from a lot of people, is to basically act like they're cheating it. But, you know, like I also see developers going like, hey, like Mac OS and Linux do the same thing. Like this is kind of how computers work now, where CPUs like idle to save power until they're needed.
Yeah, when your CPU idles at like 8 watts or something like that, what do you expect? Right. I guess like is the TLDR.
It's going to have to boost to a higher speed to do things. Like everything takes, like if you sit there, I mean, I get everybody's not me. Everybody's not going to sit there and watch CPU activity out of just base curiosity. But like everything takes more compute than you think. You know, like even like text rendering in your terminal window or something like that is more compute intensive than you think these days because there's so much going on.
Look, my terminal is 3D rendered, so it takes it takes a little bit of juice.
Now should the start menu be JavaScript or Node.js or whatever it is?
React is what it was. React X, whatever. Yes. Yeah,
probably not.
No. Yeah.
Anyway,
so okay, they talked about search a little bit. They are creating a full system index for Spotlight now. When you upgrade to the new version of the OS, and it's updated live every time file changes happen.
Oh, so that I was going to say, does that include files? Because I feel like Mac OS file search has historically been about as bad as Windows file search.
So the demo that they showed during the keynote implied strongly that it's going to be search inside files.
Inside files. Wow.
That's what I got.
That's intense.
But maybe I misunderstood. I didn't actually dig further into this because I was like, I'm kind of surprised they don't have this already, to be honest.
Like frankly, I would settle for just file name and like metadata, like creation and modified time and stuff like that. Like if I could just even search instantly for those things, I would be happy, let alone like what's in the files.
Is everything on Mac?
I don't think so. I highly doubt it.
That's a Windows software, I think, right?
There's at least one Linux equivalent that I've seen that cites everything by name. I feel like every time we talk about everything, we need to emphasize we're talking about capital E everything.
Yeah, the
Windows
search,
app.
the hard drive search for Windows.
Yeah,
basically
the excellent kind of file system indexer for Windows that lets you search all your files instantly. So there's at least one or two Linux apps I've seen that cite everything as the inspiration for them. I don't know if there's anything like that on Mac OS though. Anyway, if they're building it in, if they're building that into the OS, that's even better.
Yeah, and the point, their point was the index is updated on changes, not on a cycle. So your stuff will be live the moment it changes, basically.
I wonder if their new file system helps. I mean, it doesn't really matter here, but they rolled out APFS, their new file system a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I would assume that has something to do with it, but I don't know for sure.
They planned for things like that, or maybe that is enabling some of the stuff anyway.
Yeah. Let's see. They talked about adding Android and Windows user support for shared photo albums in the Photos app, which is thrilling as somebody who uses Windows and Linux a lot. I don't know if that means that Android users are going to get an app or if it's a web-based thing, and same applies for Windows users, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, there's the iCloud app for Windows. I don't know if it's built into that or that might be out of scope for that.
I think that iCloud, last time I installed that iCloud app for Windows, it did horrible things to my photo library because it just copied terabytes of photos down to my gigabytes of photos down to my hard drive.
Cool.
Yeah, I was not thrilled. They talked a lot about child safety features. So parental controls, all of that stuff has been an enormous boondoggle on pretty much every platform ever since the dawn of time. Some are better than others, but like none of them are actually particularly good. And they all have weird gaps. Like, the web browsing stuff only applied if you're using Safari on the devices and stuff like that. They basically have created category-based time allowances for things like games and entertainment, social media, education, whatever, and they set what look like what they described, I think, as reasonable defaults based on the American Pediatric Association recommendations for screen time usage. The feature is called screen time, just for what it's worth. Because of course it is. I'm having gone through I'm on the far side of this now, and this is the screen time stuff is the perfect example of, hey, we set this up, we wrote it down on paper, and then the people who are making the decisions and deciding where to invest didn't have kids that they're the appropriate age, so they never engaged with it in an actual way, just in a theoretical way. To the point, like, because that was always the joke about Steve Jobs, is that GarageBand was good and iTunes were good because Steve Jobs used both of those.
Sure.
And Photo Aperture was bad because he didn't ever touch that, right? So anyway, we'll see. I'm going to install the beta once it stabilizes a little bit, and I'll report back on how that looks when we get there.
I wonder how they're drawing the lines around the category specific time allowances, like games, entertainment, social media. Like, are those just app categories that descend from the App Store classification?
That is typically how that has worked. Yes.
What about on Mac OS though, where a lot of that stuff is in a web browser or is like software you might have installed from wherever that isn't their App Store? I don't know.
I don't think they worry as much about screen time on Mac OS.
Yeah,
although with the Neo, that doesn't make as much sense as it used to.
Right, because I'm sure plenty of kids are using Neos at this point.
Yeah.
Does your daughter have a phone now?
My daughter has had a phone for 2 years.
Okay, because you guys were doing the watch as mobile device thing for a while, right?
Yeah, so she did we got her a watch when she was in 3rd grade, and she was starting to like go off places with just by herself with her friends. Like when we'd go camping or something, they'd want her on the campsite, or when we'd go to the beach, she'd be off by her friends. We gave her the watch so she could ping us then. But we got her a phone. It became necessary when she was in 5th grade because like the teachers were posting QR codes on the friggin' projector and stuff like that.
And
so the kids without phones were really like, had to remember to go look up the homework site later and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like social pressure, of course. I didn't realize there was academic pressure around having a phone at this point, at least not that young.
So the funny thing is now the districts are starting to, when you go to a concert and you get one of those bags, you lock your phone in so you're present.
Oh, yeah.
The districts are buying those and making the kids put their phones in those at the start of the day, which like is massively fraught. The teachers hate having phones in the classrooms, but the parents are always upset because of the imminent risk of school shootings in the United States about their kids being in a situation where there's a disaster and they don't have access to a phone to call for help. So anyway, it's bad. School's weird now.
Yeah.
So yeah, the huge focus on the child safety stuff. I'll dig into that at some point in a potpourri or something once I'm willing to put it on my devices, and we'll report back. They also spent an insane amount of time talking about Apple Intelligence, their AI agenda, which so far has, I think, the only thing I regularly get that uses Apple Intelligence on the current version of iOS is the summarization of lots of notifications from the same application. It'll be like, hey, you got an email from Brad and Gina and your bank. And that's the extent of Apple Intelligence use on my device, I think.
Interesting. I turned it off at device setup on my 17. Like they hit you with I believe there's a single toggle at device setup, if I'm not mistaken. And I just turned it off and never thought about it again.
So the other thing that I do use is the dictation is quite good. The thing where you tap the little microphone up below the keyboard and you just talk to the keyboard and it fills it in, but you can still edit the text. It's distinct from saying, hey, the voice assistant's name, send a text to somebody, and then you say the text. If you do the dictation, then you get it writes it out into the text field. You can go back and manually edit with the keyboard if you want. But the dictation is quite good, but it's not like, I don't think they're bundling that typically into the Apple Intelligence kind of realm.
Yeah, well, they're about to, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. So they are 2 years late now on their original promised
Yeah, that seems
deadline
right.
for rolling this stuff out? Like, you saw there's like a pretty major, I guess it's a class action suit.
I expect we'll all get a $5 App Store credit at some point in the future.
I didn't look at who is the plaintiff exactly in this situation, but I think they're paying like $250 million or something for being late on delivering these features as promised.
Well, so we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, because they sold hardware based on those features. Like, I bought an iPhone with an NPU and was told that I would be using AI like crazy by now.
That is the basis of the suit, yeah.
They're pairing their cloud stuff with Gemini this year, not with OpenAI, not with ChatGPT. And the onboard device is newer. There's onboard models that are newer and faster for machines with adequate NPU hardware and RAM. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear what the Gemini, where the dividing line is. I think it was Craig, what's his name? Federighi. Like, I believe it was him that gave a quote about, they came off as a little bit defensive about their use of Gemini. Kind of saying like, hey, we're not using Google's models. We're not using this and that from Gemini. We're only using this. And I wasn't quite clear what they are using. Like, does that mean they're just using Gemini's like general framework, but training their own models with it? Or I don't know what that division is like.
So he did a roundtable after the keynote with press where they had on the record questions. And there was a lot of kind of conflicting information from different venues out of that I don't have the full sense of what he actually said. The way that their stuff is structured is that they have their own containers. They're running basically forked versions of the models. This is the way it worked in the past with ChatGPT, is they were running a forked version of the model that didn't feed back into the main model. So like stuff you send to, like, their contracts are such that stuff you send to them through Apple Intelligence didn't get rolled into the inputs that are used to train the next generation of models.
I see.
And so their stuff is running on NVIDIA hardware, running in Google's data centers this go round.
Okay.
But the idea is your version of those models are distinct from my versions of those models, and they're effectively partitioned off virtual versions of the models for everybody who's using the cloud stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think it's interesting to keep up with the stuff, even if I'm not interested in using the features themselves, just from the standpoint of Apple being, I haven't looked at the numbers, but surely the most cash flush tech company on the planet. But they've chosen not to do their own build out on this stuff. Like, they have, despite their insane means, they have chosen not to go down the road that these other companies are in doing it all themselves.
Yeah, their data centers are still for data, not for compute. So they're taking another stab at on-screen awareness. This is the, hey, Siri can look at what's on your screen and tell you stuff about it, or do things. Oh, I just activated Siri.
Well, two things here. First, should we back up? Is Siri AI new as branding?
Siri AI is new, yeah.
And that's
I got to
distinct.
stop saying Siri.
That's distinct from Apple Intelligence, or they both exist now? Those are both names that are worth knowing if you engage with these features.
Both exist. Both are part of the OS. Siri AI is the upgraded version of Siri that's available on certain devices. I think that's an NPU feature. So 15 and newer.
And Apple Intelligence is the kind of broader OS level AI features that are not activated through Siri. Okay.
That includes things like Genmoji and like the image generation stuff and all the things that you and I are never going to use probably.
The other thing I'll mention here, and this could be complete nonsense, I don't know, but I saw this going around on Twitter that supposedly they were like cutting the frequency of the word Siri in their presentation in interesting ways to prevent it from activating the Siri feature on people's devices who are watching the presentation. That could be a bunch of nonsense, but
that wouldn't surprise me. The thing that's weird is I realized a few years ago, because in like the early Siri days, they had voice recognition, so you could make Siri only respond to your voice.
Oh, interesting.
And then they cut that feature like kind of quietly without saying anything about it a few years ago.
I guess I could have, frankly, I could have run the audio from that keynote through a spectral analyzer and looked for this myself, but they were basically, the idea was that they were cutting it at like 3, 5, and 6 kilohertz or something like that. Like somehow they were, again, that could be nonsense, but it does seem like an Apple-like solution to think of something like that.
It's nice. I mean, I listen to my headphones, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
General, they're saying Siri now has general knowledge. So things that you would get from an LLM, you can ask it about. You can ask it how to put glue in your food. You can ask it how to, all the things that you want from your LLMs. It has the ability to pull stuff from the web. These are all promises I think that they've made before, just to be clear. And the one thing that is new is that there's a Siri app now that has history. So like if you ask, so in the same way that if you use ChatGPT, you can go back to past chats, this is going to give you the ability to see things that you've asked Siri about before and the answers it's given, which actually is desirable. I've asked it for things before and then couldn't tell if it actually, like I asked it to set a reminder and couldn't tell if it actually set the reminder or not because the prompt went away too fast. And now you'll have something you can refer back to. It's going to live in the dynamic island area of the device when you're talking to Siri.
That makes sense.
Siri's home is the dynamic island now. It seems like Siri comes down out of the dynamic island.
It's probably a nice place to be.
I mean, who doesn't want to live on their own island? A lot of this stuff is for 12 gigabyte devices only.
Yeah, there's two major features there, which I probably pounced on this headline because I am a relatively new iPhone 17 owner, and that device is getting shut out of these features because it only has 8 gigabytes of RAM.
It's interesting because this is one of those moves that they usually do with just the new hardware that comes out that year. So like they'll say, oh, this Siri AI voice customization stuff is only for the 2026 model of iPhone, right? But yeah, so it's 12 gigabyte models, which is basically the 17 Pros and the Air, which were both released last year.
Yeah, and then iPads with M4 or newer.
I think M3 or newer, actually.
I'm looking at this Mac Rumors story. So it's iPads M4 or newer, Macs M3 or newer.
Oh, okay.
And are there multiple Vision Pro models? There are, right?
There are, but I think they all had appropriate RAM.
This says Vision Pro with M5, so I don't know if that excludes.
Oh, no, that's only the new one.
Yeah, that I guess that excludes the launch Vision Pro. So
yeah,
like pretty recent devices, but it's not the end of the world. It's two features. It is Siri voice customizations, which, like looking at this tiny screenshot that I can barely read, there are multiple voices, and then there are sliders for pace and expressivity.
So there's always been multiple voices. Like you can get British English Siri.
Sure, you're right.
Guy Siri or Lady Siri.
Yes. I've used Australian Siri for a very long time.
Oh, I use English male Siri, so it sounds like I have a digital butler.
You're asking Jeeves.
Yeah, exactly.
But pace, pretty self-explanatory, I guess, just how fast Siri talks. Expressivity, though, I don't know if that just means more flowery language.
Oh, I expect that means you turn that all the way up. It's going to be like, wow, Will, that was the best question I've ever heard.
Sure.
You're such a smart guy. What a genius.
It should be obsequiousness.
Yeah, I want sarcasm. I want it to be really mean. I would just need a little bit of abuse early in the morning.
Yes, I would be into that, but I guess I won't find out anytime soon because my iPhone 17 cannot access these features.
Does it feel weird to you to tie like a signature feature for the thing that they're now 3 years late delivering to two phone SKUs essentially in 2026 when RAM is the most expensive thing in the world?
Well, I mean, there are just practical technical limitations that, I don't think they did this to drive sales of the more expensive models necessarily.
Dude, I don't think they needed to do the voice customizations on Siri.
Yeah, they could have just left this out. The other one is better dictation. Just quoting the Mac Rumors story here.
It's dictation with punctuation and like it can add your M dashes and stuff for you, apparently.
Said to be able to turn speech into polished text on the fly, handling capitalization, punctuation, and formatting automatically, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I mean, you're still going to have basic dictation on the older or the lesser models, just not this fancy one.
And on the older models, you can do things like I do the, hey, send a text and then you put the periods in yourself. It actually does the periods and stuff. It's the more advanced punctuation it won't do. I just say
the punctuation.
Yeah, you say the punctuation.
Like, the only place I ever use Apple dictation is when I'm texting from my Apple Watch because typing on an Apple Watch is an exercise in.
Wait, you don't do the swizzle keyboard?
It's still too small. I just can't stand it.
Okay.
But you can absolutely just say a sentence and then question mark at the end, and it will put a question mark.
So I saw a handful of reports from people who'd installed the beta on 17 Pros or Airs, and I saw some reports from people who tested it on at the demos, and the people were generally pretty impressed with the dictation.
Yeah, I believe it. But anyway, whatever. It's. I had about a 5-second moment of like, oh, I just bought this phone and seeing I couldn't use the stuff, but like whatever.
So they had after that they had a carousel of like actual Apple Intelligence features people might actually want to use.
Yeah, there were two that leapt out to me here as like, if I trusted the output, which I don't because it's not ever going to be the same every time, but like theoretically these could be kind of useful in a perfect world. Safari organizing tabs by content seems
that
pretty
sounds
good.
Fantastic.
Like for people who like a lot of tabs, like having those organized into like, here's all the troubleshooting you were doing and here's the whatever, you know, blanket research you want to buy a new Afghan or new rug. Here's all your rug tabs.
Here's my Linux tabs.
Right.
Here's my TechPod tabs.
Yep.
Here's my games tabs. Perfect. Done.
Yep. That seems neat.
I thought the password thing looked cool.
Again, this is one of those cases where like if this worked correctly 100% of the time, like it sounds kind of awesome, but I don't know that I would ever actually trust it. You can basically have passwords check all of your stored passwords for integrity, basically see if they've been compromised or not, and then go and update them on the relevant websites if they have, and then put the new passwords in your password manager.
Look,
all with one tap.
So 1Password does half of that. It gives you here's your list of compromised passwords from by cross-referencing your logins with the Have I Been Pwned website. And then you have to go manually change them. Right. So it turns out the easy part is the Have I Been Pwned part.
Right.
The hard part is updating it all automatically.
Right. It's the reaching into, and I wonder if this is Siri being, can't believe I'm using this word, agentic and able to parse like these websites kind of login flows and password update interfaces itself, or is there some like API, some standardized interface that Apple is having website developers use to enable this?
No, I bet that this is it parsing the websites and knowing what's a login field.
It would have to be, because they would never get full buy-in from every web developer to support this manually.
I mean, just to be clear, this is the kind of stuff, like the classic example of, hey, why doesn't AI do this for me? Like, why doesn't AI submit my expense reports, right? Why is there I can just take a picture of all these receipts and have it generate the expense report and me never have to think about that again. That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
This is another great example. Here's some computer busy work that didn't exist 20 years ago. I would love for the machine to do this for me.
Yeah. Or my favorite example of this is take a photo of a calendar, like a physical calendar that somebody has annotated events on, and have it turn into like a .cal or whatever the iCal standard calendar format is that you can import into your software calendar, like stuff like that, like just kind of making the glue that holds your daily life together a little more pleasant is cool. Yep. But again, you still have to trust the output, which is kind of a leap.
I use that for we have a dry erase board on the refrigerator where we put like a grocery list. It's like when you empty out something, you write it down on the list so that we know to buy more of it. Right. And it's pretty good now at taking a picture of that and turning it into pasting into a notes list or whatever, but you still have to take the picture, manually select the text, copy and paste it into notes, and then clean it up a little bit. If it could just take the picture and be like, hey, do you want to make a notes app of this? Yeah, that would be dope. I would love that. So yeah, that was kind of, and then the last one is the Siri view, which is opening up the camera and having Siri describe in like your AirPods what you're seeing, which is for people with vision impairment. That's primarily.
Cool. Huh.
That's the thing that disability access advocates I know have been like, hey, we know that the Meta glasses suck for everyone in the world, but if you're vision impaired, these things are magical because like they can describe things that are outside of your ability to see in a way that is fantastic. So stoked that that's coming to the phone. It's also coming to the headset. Not that I think anybody who's vision impaired is going to walk around with that big stupid headset on all the time.
Probably not. And I think it's September-ish. It sounds like they're not quite sure when this stuff is actually going to be shipping out of beta.
Well, so the OS is going to come out when the phones launch, as always.
Right, but I think these features are lagging that, if I'm not... the phones launch in September, so maybe they are trying to... I think I saw like they are targeting September for these things to come out.
My assumption is that these software features will launch sometime between September and 2030.
Sure.
Based on their past performance with AI-related features. For what it's worth, this stuff looks better than any of the ones that they've done before. Whether they actually ship anything, I guess, remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff is at least more practical than Genmoji or whatever.
Yeah, I only ever used Genmoji as a punctuation on a bad joke.
Sure.
We have a section at the bottom labeled miscellaneous.
Yeah, I just
you want to power through these?
A few things that were interesting of note that didn't fit into another bucket. AirPods are finally getting a custom equalizer.
That's
which
I continue to be amazed this didn't exist already.
Well, it's very Apple, right? It's extremely Apple to just decide what you want rather than let you decide what you want.
Well, that's true.
I'm new to AirPods. The AirPods Pro 3 is my first set of AirPods. I guess I'm not an audiophile because I have zero complaints about the stage, the sound stage, the presence, whatever you want to call it, of those things. Like, they sound fine to me.
Do you listen to music or podcasts mostly?
That's the thing. Podcasts are 99.5% of my use of these things, so that's probably contributing to that. But I know when the 3s came out, there were some people that were not super happy with, I don't know, the frequency response or how they were tuned or whatever. So they were finally, and I think this is for all AirPods, not just new models. As far as I can tell, the language is all super generic. Like this, the Mac Rumor story just says AirPods will gain a custom EQ, so I assume it's every model.
My assumption is that if it's for anything, it'll be like the first gen AirPods and AirPods Pro would be cut off. But since the AirPods Max are still one of the old platforms, I would assume it comes to pretty much everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen what the feature actually looks like, though. The screenshot they shipped with this thing just has an equalizer page that just says recommended or custom. And under custom, there's just a waveform with low, mid, and high on it. So I don't know how fine-grained your control is going to be here, but anything is better than nothing.
To me, this is the counter for the old, hey, if you want a lot of bass in your music, buy a pair of Beats instead of AirPods, or buy real headphones instead of either of those. That's my assumption is this is going to let you crank up certain levels, and that's pretty much it.
It'll probably be pretty basic. I doubt that I will touch this, but it's nice that they're putting it in.
Yeah. Bad news for people like you and me is that it seems like 2 or 3 generations of Apple Watch are losing support. There was some ambiguity here.
I was really shocked by this.
Let's see. I want to say one during the keynote, they said this was Apple Watch 10 and newer gets the latest version of the OS. On the post chat, they said Apple Watch 9 and newer, which is Ultra 2, I think is the pairing.
Okay. I thought they were end of lifing the 9.
So it's unclear.
Yeah.
The website doesn't say right now. So I don't know what the answer is here, but at least everything before the 9 is losing support, but maybe everything before the 10 as well.
Yeah. I'm relatively new to Apple Watches. Maybe this is just standard practice for them, but I replaced my 8 with an 11 last fall, which already felt, 11's my second one, and I already felt like, am I doing this too soon? Like, I got the 11 because they made a lot of improvements this year. Yeah. It just felt like a good time to get in, and I use the watch constantly, but I already felt like 3 years feels like kind of short to be buying a new, but I traded in my old one, and they had a Black Friday sale, so it was just a good time. So, but then seeing this, I was like, well, if I still had that 8, it would no longer be supported now. So,
well, they continue to support. You just don't get the new OS.
Sure. And also, I guess I should say, like, a watch is not a phone. Like, I would say the security concerns on a watch are probably quite a bit less significant than on a phone or a laptop or whatever.
Well, and I believe that the 7, 8, and 9 will be in the, hey, we're going to keep doing security updates for a while.
Yeah.
The thing about this is they're adding new AI features, is my understanding, to the whole thing. They're redoing the way the grid works. There's a bunch of UI changes. It seems like a fairly significant Watch OS update. And having been in this path before, they've done in the past Watch OS updates that made your old watch so slow it was unusable. So I would rather them cut off it makes sense because like the 7 and 8, I think were the exact same hardware inside, basically.
Yes, I believe that's right.
So it makes sense if that's the cutoff. Like that reads to me. I'm on a 7 still. I'm gonna decide whether, like, I bought my 7 in 2022, so that means when this gets EOL'd, it'll be 4 years old, which feels like not enough time to get out of a watch to me.
Sure.
So I'm going to decide what happens when fall comes around, I guess.
Yeah, I would say watch for their sales. That I think I ended up getting like $150 off this new one. Between the trade-in and the Black Friday sale. So
I think
Watch
my
is
next,
real good.
Yeah, I think my next one's going to be one of the big boys. But if they retire the Ultra after 3 years, after 5 years, I'm less enthusiastic.
Yeah, that thing is just so big and so expensive. I don't know. That thing's huge.
I like the flat bezel.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I wish I could get a flat one, but it is what it is.
Yeah. You put something down here that I had completely missed that sounds dope.
It is definitely the most developer-y thing at this thing, and they didn't call a lot of attention to it. I saw one of the developers of it tweeting about it. It came out last year, but they have improved it significantly. It's just called Container, which is like, you can tell it's for developers or for people who are doing low-level shit on a Mac because it's just called Container.
Is it basically like Docker style containers?
It is basically that. It is basically a different container backend, and it is an in-house container backend for macOS developed by Apple.
Does it work on the graphical level, or is it only on like command line and shell stuff?
I believe it is a command line only tool.
Okay.
Like you have to get it, you have to go to their GitHub page and just run the installer that is there.
Yeah.
And in fact, I watched the little command line demo video they have up here. I believe it is purely a command line tool, but like I know Docker Desktop exists for Mac OS, but this is basically an Apple developed container backend, just like on Linux. Like Docker, I guess, was the first of this style of container backend, but there's also Podman. Like Systemd can run containers as well. OCI is the thing that we're dealing with here, the Open Container Initiative. So the images that you're running with Docker are actually OCI images, and I believe that standardization is the reason you can run the same images with things other than Docker,
like Podman and
right. So if you look at the container page here, this tool consumes and produces OCI compatible container images. So you can basically pull like the same images you would be running with Docker with this tool instead. The reason this is interesting to me is so that necessitates they are running what they describe as a lightweight Linux VM in the background on macOS to run these images with. What they have added now, this thing shipped 1.0. I guess last year when it came out at WWDC, it was like
beta or whatever.
Beta or whatever. But so 1.0 came out this week, and it now has a feature called Container Machines, which is basically Windows subsystem for macOS. Or I'm sorry, macOS subsystem for Linux. It is effectively they are building out the container feature here to now let you just run a full Linux environment in macOS that works basically like the one in Windows with WSL2, where it automatically mounts your macOS home directory into the Linux environment. Kind of makes it easy to share things back and forth between the two.
That's interesting. That makes sense because like the current hardware you can't really run Linux on anymore. So if you're doing development work and you want to be able to use Linux stuff, I guess the solution previously has been to run a VM with Linux in it and then switch back and forth.
You definitely could have found other ways to do this, VirtualBox, or there are other ways to run VMs on macOS. But this is an Apple developed low level tool that you can install and then just kind of spin up Linux distro environments at will, just like WSL2 does in Windows. It's cool. Like I don't see myself using it on a Mac as much because macOS being POSIX underneath, like kind of most of the stuff I would want to run in Linux just has a macOS version anyway. Like most software, macOS being a Unix, like most of that type of software is available for Mac natively already. But this is still cool for people who need it.
I wonder. I was looking to see. I wondered if I could use this to run multiple Blue Bubbles instances on one computer, but it looks like the answer is no because that is a GUI client. Probably it seems like so.
Is that that is Linux software? You might be able to do that.
So Blue Bubbles is Mac OS software.
Oh, it is okay.
But I wondered if I could do a virtualized container that runs the Mac software, the server on like two different. But I don't think that'll work.
No, I think this is just for Linux images.
Yeah, it's still interesting though.
Yeah,
this is
cool to see. Yeah. macOS is a good development platform. I mean, I'm not telling most people listening to this podcast already know this, but like that, there are a lot of developers out there developing software on macOS, not just for macOS. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, a lot of web developers. I mean, honestly, all the web developers I've known for the last 20 years pretty much are either on Linux or macOS. So that's it. Then the last thing is that they have new App Store guidelines. The App Store guidelines, like this is a hard problem, right? Because they have an enormous installed base and thus an enormous desire for people who have, I want to say scammy, but like borderline apps, maybe is the way to put them. Like the stuff that was funny and novel at the start of the iOS era, like the I Am Rich app that the guy sold for $1,000. It was just a picture of a gem that spun. Or, Fart Cat, perfect example.
Oh,
I love Fart Cat. I'm a big fan. But there
Fart
were a
Cat's
bunch
a real game.
Fart Cat's a real game. Fart Cat's a bad example. You're right. Sorry, Rich. I apologize. It's my bad. But like a fart app, there were a bazillion fart apps that had varying levels of complexity and varying levels of kind of, I don't know, social and metaphysical value.
I mean, I could just quote from the new guidelines here. Other kinds of apps, such as drinking games, Kama Sutra, fart, and burp apps are mediocre and low quality or low effort and do not add value to the App Store.
Yeah.
They're basically tightening the listing of apps, I guess is the way I would put it. Or more to the point, they are broadening the number of reasons they have for delisting your app.
Yeah. So last year or the year before, they added hey, if you stop updating your app, we might delist it if it stops getting engagement. Now they've added more kind of language to that around if it's not updated, it's not getting downloads, it might get delisted, stuff like that.
It's the basically like the way TechCrunch described it is if the app does not attract users, like if it doesn't get enough downloads, which like seems rough for kind of struggling app developers who are doing apps in good faith, like trying to run a business or whatever. Like I get delisting fart and burp apps, but maybe it'll be more case by case than that. Maybe it's not just going to be a blanket. Maybe it's not just going to be a blanket like you didn't get enough downloads to meet our threshold, so you're gone.
I think, there's two things. One is if it's delisted, you'll still be able to download it if you had bought it in the past.
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah, I would hope so. But that kills dead any hope of building any new audience on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, the feeling I get, so I went through and read the actual guidelines right before we started the podcast. To me, the reading was, hey, we've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and there's a bazillion just moribund apps that are like they delist things that are no longer supported by current versions of the software.
That makes sense.
Of the OS.
That makes sense.
And this feels like, hey, there's now we can get rid of things that like nobody's engaging with and also are ancient that are just crapping up our search results.
There's probably some amount of stuff out there that doesn't get a lot of attention that is still useful though. Like occasionally I'll just need to go on the App Store and get like a Wake on LAN client or something like that.
Yeah.
Those things are not getting downloaded all the time, but now they just might get culled because of this.
There's a piece of software that I use for my mixer. That's the example that I think of here. It's just like the UI software UI for that thing. And it gets updated every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So like, are they going to have problems now? Cause it's a free app that like probably, maybe a couple 100,000 people are downloading at most. Is my ability to drive my mixer going to go away if they don't do twice monthly updates like everybody else? That seems bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is the walled garden. Steam has the same problem, honestly. Yeah. It's like huge installed base and thus desire to make money off of those users combined with the other thing that they did add that I liked was hey, you can't do obvious knockoffs anymore. So you can't make the SoMe app that's whatever. That's stuff like that. So anyway, it seems general. I don't know. I came out of this one, like I'm still kind of meh on the AI stuff.
Yeah. Like some of it is interesting in concept. Like I said, I don't see myself toggling that global toggle back on necessarily, but
I do use Siri a lot. I'm glad that there's a Siri app that I can see the things that it's done. It's told me in the past or like, often I'll be in the car and be like, hey, remind me to do this. And then it doesn't get it right. And I can't decode what I actually said to it.
Yeah.
The child safety stuff. This is a place I think more people are going to, it's interesting to me that Apple is investing in that because the screen time stuff has been essentially unchanged since they rolled it out almost 10 years ago now. It's frustrating to use on a level that's difficult to explain because like, getting an app on my kid's phone or iPad is challenging because like sometimes you'll hit the button and say, hey, ask your parent for this. And then no notification pops on either of the parent phones. Right. Sometimes you'll hit the same button. It'll be like, hey, put your parent's password in. And my iOS password is like 45 characters. I should never have to put that in on my daughter's phone. Right. It's a pretty bad experience across the board right now. The only positive is that it does a nice report of how your child spent their time, and it does, unlike every other. So Nintendo does this, and they do an actual good job of saying, hey, your kid played 4 hours of Tamagotchi Life and 3 hours of Animal Crossing and 2 hours of Among Us, right? And they give the times and all that, so you see if they're like up at 3 o'clock in the morning playing video games. The Microsoft equivalent of this only tracks Windows Store apps and then puts everything else into a bucket that's like other software. So it's completely useless because that means it doesn't differentiate Steam from like, I don't know, using Google Docs in your web browser, right? For school. This does do a good breakdown per app and per website of things that your kid's doing on their device and how much time they're spending and where they're spending that time and when they're spending the time and all that. So that part's actually good. I'm excited to see what else comes next. But
yeah, that's cool. But honestly, like I said at the top, it's the fixing liquid glass and just making a bunch of stuff faster and more efficient is what I'm excited about here. That's actually way better than any new features they could have rolled out for me.
I agree. Like, hey, making ROSs feel good is a good thing, I think. So that'll do it for us this week, I guess. Yeah. Anything else? You got anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
I will say I still have yet to update to Tahoe on my MacBook. I'm still on, is it Sequoia was the one? I'm still on the last the last flat design one, the last pre-liquid glass. I have not updated macOS in a year. I mean, I'm still installing security updates, of course, but yeah. Point being, I have not even seen liquid glass on my laptop yet, so...
Oh, so you got to install it so you can see what everybody's angry about for like a week before you switch to the next thing.
Guess I should. They do roll those out pretty quick after this, right?
So the betas are out now.
Yeah.
I think for everything, it may not be for TV and watch yet.
Yeah, maybe I should subject myself to it before.
Yeah, you should cook in it a little bit for a couple of weeks there, and then you can get the good stuff in September. But I would wait for anything that you use for actual work. I would wait to run until like. My rule is like a month prior to the iPhone release or projected iPhone release. That's when I usually start digging in.
I usually wait for the 0.1.
Yeah.
Like the 27.1 is when I will upgrade, that kind of thing.
You live a little more conservatively than I do. I like to live on the edge. That'll do it for us this week. Thanks everybody for listening. As always, we're listener supported. So that means we wouldn't be here without you. I'm pointing out of the radio at you, the listener. If you want to find out how to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, that's patreon.com/techpod, where for $5 a month, you get access to the Discord, which is full of beautiful nerds talking about stuff like this. There was an enormous conversation about this while it was going on the other day. People are pulling out interesting things from the other WWDC sessions in the Apple News channel.
Yeah, there is quite an active Apple channel on that server, actually.
Yeah, it's a good group of people. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod. As always, thanks to all of our patrons, but a very special thank you goes out to our executive producer tier patrons, who now Patreon has changed the way this screen is displayed and everybody's names are shortened for me. So let's start with Infelicitous Rips, Jordan Lippett, Octothorpe Bunny for Work, David Allen, James Kamek, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you all so much, and we will be back next week with another edition of the Tech Pod. As always, please consider the environment before printing this podcast.